I'm Robert Cairey, Bob. I joined the Navy, United States Navy Reserve V6 program in August 30th of 1943. And I was in the Navy from 1943 through April 7th of 1946.
How was training for you? What did you do in training?
Training was in Great Lakes, Illinois. You learned everything in the Navy in 12 weeks of training in the United States Navy.
What sorts of things were key into learning?
With the what?
Were important to learn? What were the things that were most important that you needed to know?
It was a great education, mentally and physically, to be a part of the Navy.
When were you first shipped into the Navy? Right after boot camp?
Right after boot camp, I had a week to go home. When I returned back from my home course, I had to wait 1 month before my school in engineering school would open up. This was in Great Lakes, Illinois. In the meantime, I would go down to the pool. One of the largest pools in the world at the time was at Great Lakes, Illinois, and I would swim. And while in the courses I was swimming, the instructors there come over and ask me what I'm doing and so forth, and I lost it. And they wanted me to join this training program, so I took the course. And the course was to train pilots how to survive when they were lost their planes or shot down. I was paid $10 more for that month, $31. Part of my job was at the top of the 30-foot diving board, and as the pilots come up, I explained how to use they were called May West at the time, the vest that will keep them afloat in the water. And what kept them afloat was a little cartridge of air, and they pulled this little string which punctured the cartridge and blows their vest up or in the water, and also a dye that shoots out around the person in the water, the body, and a little flashing light. And that was my job, and about every fourth or fifth pilot took me down into the water with them. And I climbed back up in my position again and continued. I did that for 1 month. And then from there in, I went to called basic engineering for 6 or 8 weeks training then.
What did you do in basic engineering? What did you learn?
It was how to use tools and so forth. Of course, I knew how to use them, but there was a little quick that went around. They taught you difference between a nail and a hammer.
What sort of machines did you work on?
Little lathes and milling machines, and that's about it. And drill presses, of course.
So basically your job was to repair engines?
Basically that part of it was learn how to operate machines.
Oh, okay.
And then after I graduated from there, they sent me to San Diego, California, and I went to diesel engineering school there for, I believe it was 8 weeks, diesel engineering school. And from there in, I went to Coronado, California, and we did training on small craft, coming up the beaches and things like that. Then from there, they sent me to Camp Pendleton, and we did 3 weeks of survival training. And from there, they sent us over to called the island of, in Hawaiian Islands, called the island of Kauai. And we spent several weeks there, at a beach. It was called Slaughterhouse Beach.
Why would they call it that?
It was just a name that the Marines and Navy gave it to them. And we practiced landing there and so forth. And there had a lot of obstacles in that beach, a lot of rocks and stuff that they threw around. So you had to try to avoid them as much as possible in case of invasions. And there was fake bombs that went off all places, all through the beach and everything. And from there on, they put us aboard boats and taking our time going overseas, and then we went into the invasions of Saipan, Guam, and Tinian. I believe it started in June, but I'm not too sure about the times. I forgot about those.
When was your first invasion?
Pardon?
When was your first invasion?
I'm not too sure which one it was, but I believe it was Saipan. I'm not too sure. Because there's 3 of them in a row there. And first, I went on the first wave, and as soon as we got on the beach, we had a direct hit on LCM. LCM carries about 24 Marines and a Jeep. Had a direct hit and killed everybody on it, threw me off into the water, and I got hurt kind of bad. But I managed to get onto another boat and went back to the ship, our mothership, and then they patched me up. And then I went on another boat to another invasion. And from there in, and then we got back to the boat again and got reassigned. And then I went in on the island of the first wave and also got hit very hard in the boat, blew the boat apart, killed everybody on it, and me in the water again. And I grabbed my rifle and I hit for the beach. And as I got on the beach, I hid behind dead Marines and got another Marine up on top of it in order to get myself protected on the beach. Well, I got my butt up a little too high, and one of the Japs shot me in the butt then. But I managed to get patched up by a corpsman who come running over. And from there on, I was no way to get back to my mothership. So I followed the Marines into the island to help clean up the rest of the island. On approaching on the way out of the beach area for a while there, maybe about 8,000 feet or so, 800 to 1,000 feet, I come across all this bright colored cloth and so forth laying on this sand area. And as I went up to it, I saw these 2 big swords stuck in alongside these geishas and girls that had their heads severed. And I told my buddy Dell, I said, don't go near it, Dell. I said, that could be booby trapped. Well, and I hollered at a couple other Marines in back of me, stay away from it. They wouldn't pay any attention. They wanted the souvenirs. And as they did, the whole thing exploded. And they killed about 6 Marines all around there that time. And it took us several hours that we got the island all secure and everything. And all the boats and everything was pretty well busted up. So we were stuck on the island for a while. But they managed to get us food and so forth. So Del Hooker and I, we started looking around the island, and we took some of our gears and all our gear and stuff off. And we found this bunker on the seaward side of this island, and we started investigating it inside. And I come across a mechanical drawing set full of all the tools, and I found that and I pocketed it right away. It was made in Germany. It was a post set made in Germany. Fooling around again, and we come across 3 bottles of sake, Japanese wine. And we took that, and of course Del Hooker and I, we didn't drink, so we gave it to the Marines, and they polished them off. And finally we get back to the ship, and they secured pretty well the island, and then we went back, and they sent us to a little island to recuperate in the Anahuac Atoll. And that was another story.
What is a memorable moment that you will never forget on the island?
There were no good moments. War is awful.
Mm-hmm.
There should never be any wars. Never.
Mm-hmm.
They should find other ways to settle differences.
Mm-hmm. Are you proud that you were able to have the courage to get through what you've went through?
I'll say. Out of my outfit of 158, there's 9 of us that survived, and I was one of the lucky ones.
Do you still talk to any of the people that survived? Do you still see them a lot? Or,
No. Early in the late 60s, we drove to California a couple of times. And we drove the first time, and I met my 2 buddies who was in the service with me, Del Hooker and Bob Donahoe. Bob Donahoe, he was a jockey for Bing Crosby horse ranch.
Mm-hmm.
And after the war, why he went off to do other things. And Del Hooker, he was a truck driver for up in the woods, hauling wood and so forth around.
Mm-hmm.
And they were both at their jobs, and we managed to have an afternoon together. And then maybe about 3 years later, I went back, drove to California again, and met them again. And that was the end. They both died shortly after that.
I'm sorry for your losses.
Yeah.
When did you meet this Dale Hooker?
He was a seaman, and we met in California at San Diego Naval Training Station there. And I was taking diesel craft, and he was he steered the boat.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, he was the coxswain. He's the coxswain of the boat.
So you brought us some things. Would you like to show us what they are? Andre, help me.
This here, you hold it up like this. This here is the Bible, a sailor's Bible.
Sailor's Bible.
Every person who's in the Navy is issued one of them.
Blue Jackets manual.
Blue Jackets manual.
Now, what does this book talk about?
Everything you want to know about the Navy is in that Blue Jackets manual. How to survive, how to steer a boat, what to do if you're injured,
Mm-hmm.
how to tie knots.
Did it help you a lot?
Yeah.
In the war?
Helped a lot.
What did you do with the injured or the deceased when you were invading?
The injured people?
Yeah.
Well, you manage to try to make them comfortable as possible,
Mm-hmm.
and to get them behind some place, behind dead soldiers or dead Marines, so forth,
Mm-hmm.
so they'd be protected there until the medics can be down to help them out.
Mm-hmm. And for the Marines or soldiers that died, did you give them burials, or was there nothing you could do for that?
No, that was taken over by another crew. Come in and gather up the bodies and so forth. And
Mm-hmm.
it was very sad, very, very sad.
Mm-hmm. Did you lose a lot of good friends?
Yep, sure did. Everybody did. Everybody come back from the war. In all wars have lost good friends.
Mm-hmm. Is there something that the war has given you that you will never forget, as in like a token or like a memory or a souvenir that you've gotten from the war?
Well, it made a man out of you. That's for one thing.
Mm-hmm.
And it taught you survival and manhood too.
How did your family feel about this?
Actually, I've never talked too much about it. This is the first time, 12 years ago, when we moved to Palm City in Whispering Sound, they had a Veterans Club. And I never really talked about military or anything else until I joined this Veterans Club there. And met these fellows and so forth who was in the Navy, Marine Corps, Army, Coast Guard, and so forth.
What were some of the differences from the the Marines way back when you were there, and
Navy.
now there, or the Navy, sorry, from back then to now? What are some differences you know of?
They're much stronger now, tougher. Yeah, training is different, tougher. It's better training today.
What about equipment?
The equipment is much, much better.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, much better.
How were your boats back? How was the conditions of your boats back in the day?
They just floated, and that was it.
That was it.
They all had holes in a lot of times. And the engines, as long as the engines run, the boat run.
Mm-hmm. What was a problem? What was the main problems you came to when fixing the diesel engines or monitoring?
Monitoring the diesel engines, there's two things that really went wrong with the Gray Marine diesels. They were General Motors. That was the fuel injectors. Each engine had 6 fuel injectors,
Mm-hmm.
and then a fuel filter. And they constantly had to be repaired or cleaned out. And I always kept at least 18 of them handy, ready to get back into the engine right away.
How many medals or ribbons have you received?
How many medals? I think around 12.
12.
I got 12 medals.
Can you tell us what they are?
No, because I don't have my slip with me. I think I left it in the other room.
How
Okay.
did you get your second Purple Heart?
It's when we got shot in the butt.
Oh, then what was your first one?
When the boat had a direct hit on, and it threw me off in the water,
Oh.
I got part of the boat pieces into my body, into my back. And the fact is, I had so much shrapnel in me from that boat. About 2 years ago, I went to the doctor. My back was bothering me bad. And Dr. Eckersley, dermatologist, took a biopsy of this place in my back. And I had to go back in a couple days later, and he operated on the back. He took out a piece of steel about 5 inches long. That was been in there all these years.
How did you actually relax? Like on relaxing days, what did you do?
You mean doing the Navy?
Yeah, all when you're on the ship, with the whole crew.
Everybody played cards or they gambled in some way or another. But I always managed to get a book or have a book around and read if I could, which I do a lot of today.
Could you tell us about the sampans?
Yeah, I'll start from the beginning of that.
Okay.
I was recuperating on this island. It's where you go to recuperate before they send you back home. And I didn't like to sit around too much, and this day I was out repairing the burners on the bakery, which is out on the seaward side of the island. And when I come back, there's on this island recuperating, there was a few Indians who belonged to this here group in the Marine Corps that did signal corps and so forth, and they had their own signals for getting through conversations over the radios and so forth. And they also had a way of making alcohol out of raisins and what do you call it?
Corn.
Raisins and yeast.
Yeast.
Fermenting. Well, this one Indian, nobody liked him, never did get along with anybody hardly. And he come up to me with a knife, and he was going to knife me, and I grabbed him and by his knife arm, and I threw his arm back and broke his arm, and I broke his jaw, and hauled him up to sick bay. And 2 days later, I had to go to captain's mess. It's like a court of officers, and I had to explain to him what happened. They reduced me from a second-class motor machinist to a third-class motor machinist. And as they did, they 2 days after that, they put me on a plane. They shipped me to Guam. And in Guam, they took me down to the dock area, and here this boat, PT Boat 197, was up by the dock. I had to help get this boat ready for the training. And my job was to check out the 3 gray marine diesels in this boat. And I had 2 firemen, apprentices, working with me at the time, which we did. We got everything all ready, jacked the boat up and put all new screws. The screw is a propeller in the Navy. Yeah, the screw is what it is, a propeller. Put all new screws on, got the boat all ship shape, took all the torpedoes and torpedo tubes off, took all the 20 millimeter guns off, and they put a brand new 50 calibers in the back and one in the fantail in the stern.
Mm-hmm.
The one on the stern was mine. So 2 officers and myself were operating this boat, and we took it out to sea and see how it operates and so forth, and everybody was happy with it. My immediate officer was I keep forgetting. I keep forgetting these names. Was Joe Boyle. He was Lieutenant J.G. And the first lieutenant was Ed Colvin of the Marine Corps. And he was a communications engineer. And his job was, he had a very sophisticated radio put on the bow of the boat inside. And that was his job, to communicate where our positions were and so forth throughout our rescue missions in the Philippine Sea and the South China Sea.
Mm-hmm.
So our first jobs were to pick up a group of Marines, which is about 12 Marines and 2 officers, and we took them to different islands to clean off the islands. No survivors, no prisoners. And they shot everything and killed everything in the islands that was in and around within a couple 100 miles of Saipan and Guam and Tinian. Mm-hmm. And that went on for several days. And then we had orders to go into the South China Sea. And of all our rescue missions in the South China Sea and Philippine Sea, we rescued 265 pilots that were shot down or lost their planes and so forth. Mm-hmm. Then we had orders to go find our way into Hong Kong Harbor. We had to pick up 5 flyers who had lost their way somehow or other, and they ended up into China. And we didn't know we didn't have enough fuel for our boat. So we put 8 50-gallon drums of fuel on the top deck. And as we went a couple hundred miles, we would take the drums and pump the fuel out of that into our fuel tank. Then we'd practice sinking that into the ocean with our rifles, mm-hmm. or our machine guns. As we approached Hong Kong Harbor, we were told through the radio to shut off all our engines as we approached this area. And we noticed these bombs and stuff floating in different parts. But there was a net across this harbor area, and the sampans come up by the dozens. And they come out and they circled our boat and dragged us across the area, and then took us several miles into a docking area. And into this docking area, we tied up our boat, and a few minutes later, here comes the flyers who couldn't walk, and they were being carried on these what do you call these?
Stretchers?
Yeah. And the people who carrying them, helping them out, were what they call slopeheads of China. And they were the very slow people, like an imbecile type of people, who all wore the same hats. They all smiled the same. They almost all looked alike. And as they were bringing it out, they got 3 of them up onto our boat there. And the 4th one come by, and when he did this here, he fell, tripped. When he tripped, this here soldier, a China soldier man, drew his sword to go over and cut his head off. And his head flew down beside me, and I was covered with the blood all over for them. And I didn't know what to do at the time because the stretcher had fallen. So I hopped up on the dock, and as I reached down to pick up the stretcher, Lieutenant Boyle hollered at me, "Bob, watch." And just as I looked up, here was a soldier coming down with a sword. He was going to strike me with a sword. I pulled out my pistol, I put it up to his nose. And I told him, I says, "Put away the sword, I'll blow your head off." Well, he stayed there with that sword in midair, and they told me to get back down in the boat, which I did. And another sandpiper guy, what do you call him? He come over and he picked up the carriage, and they took over and they got all 5 flyers into the boat. And then we had orders to take off. All these there boats and so forth got us around again, and they took us out and got us by. And as I was leaving the dock, this soldier saluted me. And I saluted back to him, of course. And they took us over, and they took us out of these nets again. By that time it was daybreak. The sun was up. And we had no protection at all. As soon as we got there, we started our engines up. And the center engine of a PT boat has to be started manually. So it was my job to get down and start the engine up manually, put it in gear. The other 2 are already in gear. It took us about 60 to 65 mile an hour across the water. And boy, when they're telling you when a PT boat is going that, there isn't much of the boat in the water. It's pretty well lifted up. And here comes 2 kamikaze planes after us, and one dove this plane, and the tip of the wing hit the bow of our boat and put a little crack up in the bow a little bit, but he went in the water. And the other made a few passes at us, shooting at us, and I shot him down with my machine gun. And then we got to a submarine out near the Philippine Sea, and the submarine come up, and we transferred the 5 pilots from our boat to the submarines. We were running out of fuel. We didn't know what to do by that time. And 3 of these pilots come over to me, and they recognized me from the training program in Great Lakes, Illinois, where I helped them train. And that's what this here medal here is. It's Navy Marine Corps life-saving medal. I think eventually we saved 265 pilots all the time in the South Pacific. Oh, and during the course of when I traveled in the South Pacific, they rated me a first-class motor machinist then. So they put me up 2 more classes.
You got back to your original.
I got back with it.
Yeah.
And then we went back to our base. Oh, wait, well, first we had to stop at a place in the Philippines. We finally found some fuel. I believe it was called the island of Talagi. Finally got some fuel there, and then got back up to Guam again in our base.
Now, when you went with the Marines to clear out the islands, is there a certain story that you remember, like a certain story that's memorable?
Awful, awful. To hear all that shooting and others killing people, killing probably those Japanese soldiers were starving to death anyhow. There was no way they could get food on those islands. That was it.
Did anybody try to get near you during those times?
No, because I stayed on the boat all the time. Oh, I had one problem there. I just happened to remember, too. And we had a bunch of these Marines, and something happened. We hit something in the ocean somewhere. And we were near Easter Island. Imagine you've heard a lot about Easter Island. And we managed to get onto Easter Island, and we had to back the boat around so I could get down underneath it. Well, got underneath it, and here I had to have a bent prop. And we managed to get the prop. And I gotta imagine, just to get it on and tightened up, we had spare props. And at the time, one of the largest lizards you ever seen in the world was on this island watching us. And all the Marines, they wouldn't get off the boat. They didn't want to kill the thing, you know? And anyhow, we got the boat fixed up, took a couple hours, fixed up, and this lizard, but he kept watching us. And he didn't make any attempt to rush us or anything. So we finally get back into the service and did our job in the islands.
You mentioned a story, and while we were talking before, about a woman and a child.
Yeah, that was on one of the islands. And the Marines got off, and we were waiting there. Of course, we had to stand beside our machine guns. And this lady and a little boy come up to the water, and they're waving a flag, and they wanted to help. And we couldn't do anything. We backed the boat off of the island. We didn't want to get too close. And somebody from the shore hollered, "Bob, kill him, kill him." So I had to shoot him. And when I shot him, they both exploded. They blew up. They were armed with explosives. Because if they got on our boat, that would have exploded our boat.
Can you show us that ribbon you showed me with the Japanese soldiers?
Oh, yeah. What did I do with that?
I think it's in there.
I come across 2 Japanese sailors who attacked me on the mainland. And what I did, I killed both of them, and I took these off.
Hold that off.
Sailor.
Sequence.
But there was another one under. Where the heck that one? This is mine from my Navy days. I cut them all together.
Can you show it to the camera, please?
This here is wrapped around the cap of a Japanese sailor who I extinguished from life.
Would you happen to know what that means on the front?
No idea. It just went into a drawer and stuff, and this is my my Navy, or my hat that I kept from my Navy days.
Now, do you regret anything about going into the Navy?
No, what I was the only one in the family who went to war. And when my son was growing up, he was in college. And when the Vietnam War come along, and I managed to keep him out because of my records of the Navy and so forth. So, as I say, he was in college at the time, but his number was just ready to be called. And of course, he didn't have to go, which I felt good about that. So.
Do you have any other stories you'd like to share with us?
You want to see the Purple Hearts?
Yes, please.
This is my uniform. I wore this all the time. It's set above my medals and so forth. Here is another Japanese, off of a Japanese a sailor that I took off of him to also. And this was wrapped around the neck, Japanese sailor. And here's my Purple Hearts is awarded to me. And the star of the Purple Heart means I had two Purple Hearts. So,
Who awarded you that? Who presented you with the Purple Heart?
at the time, officers I was with presented them the first time.
Mm-hmm.
But I lost most of my medals moving to Florida back in 1981.
Mm-hmm.
Did you ever find any of the medals?
No, but when I moved here, I got to have a good friend, Ken Pruitt, and he managed to get with a senator at that time. His name was Lewis, and he helped me maintain to get all my medals and so forth back again. And here's a photograph of me during training at Great Lakes, Illinois. And this is a photograph of the fellows who come back for the war.
And
My
Dale,
buddies.
Dale and your
Yeah,
other
Dale
friends are in
Hooker, Bob Donahoe, and so forth. And I forget Murphy, and I forget most of their names. 'Cause I'm the only one surviving today.
Mm-hmm.
And when I come home, discharged, before I was discharged, November 30th of 1945, I had to go to school to learn how to maintain myself back in civilian life. It was a program that was put on by Eleanor Roosevelt to try to get people coming back from the war to be civilized again. So I spent 3 afternoons in San Diego before we were discharged. And I had an awful time getting home because the planes were filled, the trains were filled, so forth. But I finally maintained getting back home. And Wilma and I would get married in December. I was home for 2 weeks, and I got a call or got a telegram from Pittsburgh to Pennsylvania. I had 48 hours to report to Pittsburgh in full uniform. Well, I thought I was discharged, but I belonged to the V6 program, the Navy Reserve. Reported to Pittsburgh, and they had 5 days to get to California. I reported into a base in California. They put me on board the LST 772. I didn't bring that stuff in. Oh, that's all right. Oh, yeah. On board the LST 772. Now, there was 2 officers and 6 enlisted men. And as we got this ship pretty well checked out, we had to go up to a shipyard, and they helped us check out the ship, the 772, check it out, and they loaded it up with all kinds of vegetables, meats, frozen lockers are filled, and we sailed it back to Oakland, about Oakland, California. We anchored there. It was waiting for orders to go to China because if there's a Cold War, if something broke out in China. We sat there until April 7th. They discharged me and sent me home again. And that was my career in the Navy.
What sort of things did they teach you in the civilian course? How to conduct as a civilian?
Yeah.
What did they teach you?
Well,
What did they say?
Manners.
Mhm.
Manners.
Yeah.
Watch your swearing, your cussing.
Yeah.
Forget all that Navy lingo. You know.
Yeah.
Of course, you did that anyhow because people don't talk like that in civilian life.
Mhm.
And I managed to, when I was aboard LST, I managed to acquire the diary of the USS LST 772.
Mhm. What is what?
And this
sort of
goes
things are
on to it tells the life of the LST, when it was built, where it was built, who commanded it, and all the people that served on it.
Mhm. Are you mentioned in that?
Yeah. And I can't manage to hold that on my life in the civilian life.
When did you finally realize that the war was over, everything was done?
How did I feel?
Now, when did you finally realize that?
Oh, we were flabbergasted. We couldn't believe it. When we went out, we needed some fuel, and we saw this USS Missouri, and that's where this all the Japanese came aboard and signed the armaments and that. Well, it was just a few days or a couple weeks before that we aborted that because we needed some food and we needed fuel. Well, they took us aboard and they gave us some food and so forth, and of course the chefs, they loaded us up with some food again on our PT boat, 197, and then we continued on from there to back to Guam again.
How was the food? I was wondering, how was the food on it?
Yeah, it was edible. Yeah. I had good food on the LST 772 because there was a German who was born in Germany. He managed to get out of Germany before the war started in the late 30s. And when he came over to the United States, he joined the Navy. And he was a cook. And then he was on board the LST 772 then. And I was the only sailor who went into the South Pacific aboard the boat. And I ate anything I wanted. I love good food.
How did you pass your time on the islands?
Oh, there was a lot of things to do. I used to get down to the signal shack, and we'd signal on the clouds back and forth. The different ships was going by, and so forth. And this one day, I was down there one evening, and I happened to talk on this flashing back and forth, and this guy picked up on one of the ships coming into the harbor about 60 or 80 miles away. And I says, where are you from? And he says, oh, we just come out of San Francisco. And says, where you come from? And he says, oh, I come from Pennsylvania. I said, I'm from Pennsylvania. He said, where at in Pennsylvania? He says, I'm come from Sharon, Pennsylvania. I said, that's where I was born, in Sharon, Pennsylvania. I said, who am I talking to? I'm talking to Dan Yeoman. Dan Yeoman and I grew up together.
Wow.
And he was a signalman on this, on these, some kind of a marine ship.
Merchant Marines?
Merchant marine ships. He was a signalman on there. So I managed to get a ride the next day on a plane. And they took me down to the plane and landed, and I went out in a boat and spent the day with Dan. And then from there on in, I went out in the islands again. And his run was between there and Australia, bringing food and stuff back and forth.
So, did you play any sports or do any activities while waiting for the next orders, or?
No,
No.
no. I used to fool around repairing Jeeps, just to fool around with them.
What made you want to become a mechanic?
I don't know. The way I grew up, I guess. When I come home, there was no jobs in 1947. And you had what you belonged to, what they call a 52-20 club. That's, you get paid $20 a week for 52 weeks, $20 a week. I couldn't handle that. So I managed to get a job driving truck in the Sharon Steel Corporation. Sharon Steel just bought the Cairey, Illinois Steelworks. So I managed to get in there as a truck driver. And I got my name down for apprentice machinist through the government program. I forget the name of that. But anyway, I became a machinist, then a tool and die maker. And then I took supervisory courses, and I was a foreman for a while. And after that, I went into the mill and engineering department, and I worked into the mill on engineering work and so forth. And after the mill was bought out by a corporate raider in Miami, and they did away with the engineering department and so forth. So I went back to work, and then a couple of years later, then I retired when I had my 35 years in.
You mentioned the story earlier to me when you went to France.
Oh yeah. I didn't bring that diploma with me.
Oh, okay.
Wilma and I, we travel a lot.
Mhm.
And we've practically been around the world. And this last July, latter part of June and July, we spent 16 days in France. And we traveled from the airport. There was a group of 118 people. Traveled with a group up to Omaha beaches, into Normandy, and we ate at a restaurant there on the beach that was there before the war, and they renovated that, and they had beautiful lunch there. So we spent, I had a lunch there, and went to this here beautiful museum, and I'm sure it was sponsored by the government, United States government. They had millions of dollars into that. And the anything that pertaining to the invasions was in that museum. And in the museum, I hear my name being called, Bob Cairey. Report to the flag area in the center of the compound at 1:30. And I said, oh, nobody knows I'm here. And we were with 118 people, I think, I said. Pretty soon another name's called, and there were 6 of us. And so we managed to meet in the, by the flagpole in the center there, and there was several hundred people had gathered there, 600-800 of them. And here it was, the grandson of President de Gaulle come over and presented us with a diploma called Monsieur Bob Cairey, part of the French government. And he shook our hands, of course, and he gave us a big hug. And there were 6 of us, and all 6 of us served in the South Pacific during the World War. None of us was in France. Mm-hmm. And then he told us that they would send us a medal later on. But I haven't received any medal yet.
Are there any other war stories that you haven't told us yet?
That's about it.
You ride home a lot? Like,
Pardon?
to your family, did you ride home?
Oh yeah, practically almost every day I could. They had different type letters, called a V-mail, I believe it was, like that. And you had a little short paper, and you wrote what you could on this paper, then you sealed it, partial, because they had to be looked at by an officer before they'd send it home. You were you're not allowed to tell where you're at or what you were doing or anything like that.
Oh, okay. Did you get mail back when you?
Oh yeah, yeah, but once a month you get a stack of mail.
Mm-hmm. When you were in the service, is there a technique or skill that you learned through there that's helped you today?
Yeah, it helped me in mechanical trade.
Mechanical.
Become a machinist. Oh, that post engineering outfit, that took me through quite a few courses in college. Mm-hmm. It took my son through college, and also my daughter used it in college. And I still have it out somewhere. A couple of pieces are missing, but it's there. Souvenir.
When you were in the services, was there a mentor or somebody that helped you get through?
Oh yes, there always were. You come back to the States, there's always somebody who's there if you want to talk to them or had any problems, forgetting things and so forth. Mm-hmm. There's always somebody there to help you out.
All right. So, did you face any problems, or did you need to see anybody to talk to them?
I think everybody has a few problems.
Mm-hmm.
You know, flashbacks, things like that.
Do you still suffer from those?
No. But I forgot to tell you this, though. When I come back from overseas and I get married, I was as yellow could be from drinking the water overseas.
Uh-huh.
And then, of course, we all had spells of yellow fever and things like that. And it took quite a while, quite a few weeks to get over that, where your body get back to normal.
Okay, well, we thank you for your time today, and I think that's the end of the interview.
Oh, great.
Thank you.
It was nice
I
meeting you.
enjoyed it. Yeah, that's a lot of fun. Yeah, good luck on your programs.
Thank you.
I'm sure.
Oh, could you go out there? If you think he left some more pictures out, on the other table.
I'll go grab that diploma if you'd like.
Can you grab it?
And the group one?
Here's a group of the fellows that come back.
Okay, and that book that you said, the book up here?
This here is the a Sailor's Bible.
Hold it down just a little bit. There you go. Perfect.
And it tells you about everything about the Navy. Completely detailed.
Okay, and your Purple Heart?
And here's my Purple Heart. The star means I have two of them.
And the last thing was that book or the diary you had.
Oh, here's the diary of the LST 772. I managed to keep all these years. It tells all about the people who was on the boat on the LST 772 and the officers and where they traveled to.
And can you open that and show us what page it is?
This is when it was in Saipan.